The moderator of Face the Nation and our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Margaret Brennan, joins me now. Margaret, always great to have you here. What'd you learn?
Well, we spoke with the CEO of Chevron and tried to bottom line it because the president, some of his cabinet members are telling us gas prices they expect to come down relatively soon over the next few months. That was not my understanding after having this conversation. In fact, Wirth told us it's really hard to make any kind of assumption because the dynamics affecting supply are so unusual. I asked him, the Strait of Hormuz, 20% of global supply kind of congested at this moment. He said when they get to a point where they're considering sending vessels, he does expect the U.S. Navy to potentially escort the first ships that go through there. But we are not at all at that point. He made that clear. If there is a risk to personnel or the vessel from an Iranian launch of a missile or from a mine, no way, no go. And he said as well that supply is really tight. We've been talking about gas prices. He said, be prepared for what's coming on jet fuel. Take a listen. You mentioned jet fuel. That doesn't have as long of a life, right? You have to refresh and replenish storage pretty quickly. We're reading about airports running out of jet fuel. What's the reality there? What is the supply, and what does that mean for Americans who might want to travel?
Yeah, inventories of jet fuel in certain parts of the world were at seasonally relatively low levels before the conflict began. The Middle East refiners are significant exporters of jet fuel, particularly to Europe, where 75% of Europe's imported jet fuel tends to come from those refineries. It's not flowing today. So we are seeing jet fuel tighten very quickly in Europe, in Asia, and we're seeing airlines announce adjustments to their flight schedules. We're seeing it flow through into fares. I think that's one of the first places it'll be felt most broadly. I mean, we've seen some upward pressure on gasoline prices now. I think aviation is clearly an area where it's going to probably get worse over the next few weeks.
Get worse over the next few weeks, but that has a lag effect. I mean, what you're saying is if you're buying a trip to Europe, expect to pay a heck of a lot more, even if it's months from now.
Yeah, again, I can't predict how the airlines are going to price their product, but I think the upward pressure that they're seeing on prices and the tightness in the market is likely to lead to further route optimization, and so flights may not be as abundant as they otherwise would have been. I think planes will probably be more full than they would have been, and yes, fares could be higher.
So what you heard him describe there is how we'll feel it. But what he was saying is the challenge is the shock absorbers that are built into the system to protect in moments like this. Those are being drained because of how long this conflict has been sort of a question mark. Like, we are in this truce that's not quite clear it's a truce, so you can't say the war is over. We've already seen President Trump take these emergency measures, tap the stockpiles, he lift temporarily some sanctions. And you saw again today an extension of the Jones Act waiver. That is that 1920s law that requires American ships to come into American ports. Now they can use ships from anywhere, basically, to move things faster. So we're somewhat at the limit of those things that can be done domestically to offset the prices that Americans are going to feel.
And one of the things I've been reading about, Margaret, is before the war began, there were a lot of vessels on the sea with lots of things inside them. And they've almost all reached their destinations now, meaning that supply was sort of floating along and reaching markets, buffering this a little bit in this 5 or 6 weeks of the war. Now, with all that delivered and very little in the pipeline from the Strait of Hormuz, these supply things are getting tighter by the day.
That's what he was describing. Now, of course, as a company in the private sector, they're going to look for opportunities. But this pressure in the near term, they aren't ready to redirect fully, right, to totally change their business plan. They do see opportunity domestically, but we also spoke about how restrictive it is in terms of ramping up domestic supply. You hear President Trump talk all the time about energy independence. Actually tapping into the supply at home in greater amounts is going to take time. And then ultimately, what energy CEOs like Mike Wirth would like to see is a change to how this is regulated in America. He says it's easier to stop than start tapping into American supplies. And for that, you need Congress. And as we know, they're not getting a lot of bills through these days.
An institution that's more than a little bottlenecked just now.
Also, yes. Also a little congested at the moment, yes. Major Garrett.
No particular hostilities, just ideological ones that we're all well too familiar with. Margaret Brennan, always a pleasure.
Thanks.
You can watch more of Margaret's interview with Mike Wirth on Face the Nation this Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern.